All right, well, good morning, everyone. How are we doing? I'm just going to give up on asking. Thank you. One person is doing great out of everyone here. Okay, anyway, let's get past that awkward moment. Get to some more awkward moments. So as you may know, I like to start off with some words of wisdom, but before we get to that today, I would like you to do me a favor. I would like everyone to raise their hand. Just one hand. Just raise your hand. Go ahead and just raise your hand. Yes? Okay, good. You're all wondering, what have I just bought into? What am I buying into? What is he about to do? Okay. Now you can lower your hand only if you're not expecting a talk about mothers today. So if you are expecting a talk about mothers today, keep your hand up. All right, so most of you are expecting a talk about mothers today. You can put your hand down. Well, I'm the kind of guy that likes to do the unpredictable, so today we're going to talk about fathers. I love that we got a yes. The murmur goes around, how dare he do that? I'm not going to do that. You can calm down. We're not going to talk about fathers. It's not the day for that. Actually, we'll get there in a minute, but all this week I was actually at Unity Village. Raise your hand if you're familiar with what Unity Village is. Okay, we've got some work to do. Dan, could you actually bring up the house lights a little bit? I want to see these beautiful faces as I'm just railing into them with questions. All right, if you're not familiar with Unity Village, it is what you could call our mother church or our mother center. And this is where I was. So this is a picture of me standing next to the famous Unity Village Tower. If you've ever been there or by there, you recognize that tower in Lee Summit, Missouri. And this is sort of just a central shot of the fountains actually pointing towards the Unity Chapel, and that's where they do church on Sunday in that chapel there at Unity Village. And then facing the other direction, you have the fountains going down the courtyard down the middle. They do a lot of weddings and events there, and they've really put a lot of money into the property at Unity Village, which is acres upon acres upon acres. They have golf courses and hotels and walking trails and all sorts of retreat centers and meditation rooms. It's just an amazing, beautiful place that is really the heart of Unity, and sometimes we refer to it as the Mecca for Unity because those in Unity leadership and lay people love to go there to just reunite, reconnect, and reinvigorate their spiritual practice. So they have a lot of events that happen throughout the year, and it might be something you want to engage with someday. So that is Unity Village. Now you're fully aware of that. And actually what you're looking there on the left, that building is where they hold a lot of the classes for ordaining ministers and licensed Unity teachers. So I was out there because I'm on the board of the Unity Worldwide Ministries. I'm on the board of trustees for that organization. And 4 times a year, we like to get together in person. So we do a lot of phone call meetings every month. But 4 times a year, we get together in person so we can really work on the bigger issues. And we'll meet twice a year at Unity Village, and then the other 2 times a year we'll actually meet somewhere else in the country so we can get out and see some of the other churches and integrate with them and see what they have going on. So that's why I was there this last week. And now the board is made up of ministers and lay people, so it's not all ministers. And they're from Unity churches all over the United States and occasionally from Unity churches around the world. We did have a minister from Hawaii earlier, but now he's back stateside, so it's just all the United States represented. And so during this time, while I was at Unity Village, I was actually working on my talk for today. And at one point during one of our breaks from meetings, we'd wake up, the board would come together, we'd pray and meditate for a period of time, then we would meet, then we'd have a break, and then we would meet, and then we'd have lunch, and then we would meet, and then we'd have dinner, and then we'd go to bed. That was pretty much our schedule for about 3.5 days. So we had a lot of stuff to get to. So during one of these breaks, I was asking a friend and a co-board trustee of mine, Reverend Richard Bunch, if he's ever done a Mother's Day talk on Mother's Day that was not about mothers and had nothing to do with mothers. And he is a minister at Unity of Richmond, Virginia, and this is his response. In Virginia, if you show up on Mother's Day and don't give a talk about mothers, that will be your last talk before they run you out of town. Well, after his advice, you can rest assured I'm going to talk about mothers today. So that's how we'll get there. And we will begin with our words of wisdom, but today our words of wisdom are not going to come from some other spiritual source. They are going to come from you. And it's going to happen this way. I'm going to invite you to take a second and really just think about the essence of the word mother. What does the essence of that word mother mean to you? And I'm going to invite you to ignore any negative connotations you may have attached to that through past experiences, but really get to the true essence of the word mother and what that means, what a beautiful mother would be. And we will create our words of wisdom together this morning by you answering this question, which is not that one, which I forgot to fix last service. The question is, how do you describe the true essence of a mother? What are words to describe the true essence of a mother? So go ahead and you can just shout those out. Love, sharing, nurture, unconditional love and nourishment. So we might call that agape love. Protection, protect. Co-creator. Did I hear bathroom? Oh, compassion. Compassion, best friend, sharing a bathroom. Okay. Got you. Yeah, we spend a lot of bathroom time together with our mothers. Anything else that comes to mind? Home, creator of the universe. That's a lot to expect of mothers. No, it's true. Yes, home. What else did I hear? Something over here? What was that? Teacher. Sense of humor. Sacrifice. It's funny because when I hear like 3 different words come together, you don't even want to know what my mind tries to translate it as. But something about lust just happened there. So I'm just going to wipe that one and move it aside. All right, so I think we got a pretty good smattering there of some words that really describe the essence of a mother or the essence of a true mother. And this is a great representation of what that is. And I wanted to bring up this next quote because I think it does a really good job of taking some of those words, some of those meanings, some of those feelings, and putting them into a statement. I found this on the internet. It said, "Motherhood is a choice you make every day to put someone else's happiness and well-being ahead of your own, to teach the hard lessons, to do the right thing, even when you're not sure what the right thing is, and to forgive yourself over and over again for doing everything wrong." So there are several things I like about this quote. First, I feel it hits some very key points that we should remember. It hits on humility and selflessness, putting others' needs before one's own. It hits on fortitude, the ability to teach the hard lesson and not always choose the easy way out, which for me as a parent, I believe can be one of the hardest parts of parenting, is sticking to that difficult lesson and not choosing the easy way out. And then it speaks to higher awareness and intuition, doing the right thing if logically and consciously you're not even sure what that right thing is. And then it gets on to patience, understanding, and forgiveness, realizing you are doing the best you can and you're not always going to get it right, and that's okay. And if anyone who's been a parent or worked with parents knows that that's something that you really have to learn to grow into, is accepting that you're not going to do it perfectly, and that's okay because you were never supposed to. Your child is going to be raised under you as it was supposed to be raised, and as long as you're doing the best you can, that's all anyone could ask, and that's okay. So I think a lot of times we put some very high expectations on mothers, and we put out these very grandiose words, and people are like, wow, I'm not sure I'm really doing all that. But that's okay. But I also like this quote because even though it begins by referencing motherhood, it's really referring to just the essence of love. The essence of anyone living in love would be acting in accordance with what that statement says. And love is really the true essence of a great mother. And I think everything we mentioned really would spawn from that essence of love, which creates a great mother. But love is also that essence within each of us that is waiting to be fully and expressed and fully realized by each and every one of us, just sitting there waiting to come to the surface. We so often associate this kind of love with mothers, but it is really something that is built in to the human essence at its core. It is really built into each and every one of us. But the experience I had while writing this talk really reminded me, really sort of opened my eyes to the realization of something that goes beyond just love and mothers. And it actually started about 2 weeks ago when I had to drive a very large pickup truck with a trailer, quite a long distance, which is something I haven't done for a very, very long time, and I've never done quite to this scale. And before I could even attach the trailer to the truck, I had to figure out how to attach the tow hitch to the truck itself. So if you're not sure what a tow hitch is, you've probably seen it around town. That's a tow hitch, and it has to be attached to a truck. And upon first glance, that looks like a pretty simple thing to do. You look like you just slide something in and you stick a pin in it. That was pretty much my assumption, looking at it ahead of time. Pretty straightforward, but there I was sitting in a parking lot, bumbling with this thing for about an hour, until a woman actually came up, and she asked me if I needed help. Now, I'm not the type of man who's like, "Ruh, ruh, I can't take help from a woman." I was very welcoming for her to come help me at this point in time. And it turned out that not only did she know how to help me with what I was doing, but she had the tools and extra parts I needed in her truck to bring them over and help me with what I was doing. So now all was going good. We were making progress until we realized I was going to need a wrench much bigger than anything she had in order to adjust the height of the hitch to make sure it was the right height I was going to need. And so she reminded me that O'Reilly's Auto Parts will lend you tools for free. And lo and behold, as I looked one up, I found that there was an O'Reilly's, I'm not joking, 30 feet from where I was standing. And so I walked over to O'Reilly's, and without question, I told them the wrench I needed, and they just reached behind the counter and handed it to me. Now, they did not ask for a deposit. They did not ask for my name. And when I think back on it, they never even asked for me to bring it back. So I have a very nice new wrench. It's a part of my tool set, thanks to O'Reilly's. No, I brought it back. But once the hitch was on, now it was time to actually go get the trailer itself. And again, I had the a sobering discovery that attaching a trailer to a hitch is far more involved than I ever would have imagined. I figured you'd have this little ball, you drop another thing on the ball, it snaps into place, you drive off with a smile on your face. Well, after about 2 hours of negotiating my life with this situation, I realized it was not going to happen with the little know-how I had, and we were in a place that had no cell phone coverage, no Wi-Fi, so there was no cheating and looking up online. Well, lucky for me, 2 gentlemen were walking by who were happy to come lend a hand, and one of them actually used to be a truck driver, so he was very well versed in hitches, and it didn't take the 2 of them long before they went back to their trucks, got their tools, came over, and helped me put this whole thing together. Which in the end, success. There it is, attached and ready to go. There's so many little gadgets and things attached onto this thing that I never knew existed. It blew my mind, but these guys are like, tick, 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 tick. All right, there you go. So these are really only some of the examples of what we experienced through this process. Throughout the entire time, the few days we were working on this whole thing, people and situations kept just showing up to make sure we were taken care of. And I could just feel that essence of love moving through life as everywhere I went, I had no worry that I wasn't going to figure this out or I wasn't going to be helped in some way because something would just arrive and take care of without me even necessarily asking. People just showing up, looking at me and going, "You clearly need help. And I'm going to give it to you because I can't watch this any longer." But the universal love just kept presenting itself and embracing us and helping us along the way to give such a comforting feeling, really that feeling you have with a mother. And it kept bringing me back to that feeling of a mother. So here I was working on a talk about mothers, and what kept showing up for me was that a mother's love comes in so many forms and in so many ways and so many directions, from complete strangers to an auto parts store. And I really thought about what a loving gesture that is for them to just have a cache of tools that most people don't have access to, can't afford, for you to come and just borrow and use and bring back. It's really a beautiful thing in this society that we just assume is all about money and getting and taking, that when you see something like that, you should celebrate it. And you should really thank them and promote them and let people know this is still existing out there. So all of these situations and people exhibited this quality of love that is selfless in its effort to help another. They didn't get anything out of helping me. It wasn't their trailer I was pulling. People just came out of complete selflessness to help me. And I'm sure they had times and things they had to get to and lives they had beside what I was doing, but they stopped what they're doing to come help me. So my talk was beginning to take shape. I was realizing this motherly love of the universe is very similar to the love of a mother for her child, and the selflessness that goes into taking care of a child really is this selflessness in the universe that takes care of us. So it's starting to come together, but I still didn't really have the meat of the talk. I didn't really have the purpose of the talk for coming up here. So a few days went by, and I found myself now at Unity Village, filling my duties as a trustee of the board. And I was entrenched in 3.5 days of business meetings. And the primary focus of our efforts centered around one question. How do we unite the two Unity organizations that exist today into one organization, or what we were commonly referring to as One Unity? Now, not to bore you with the details, but let me give you some Unity history. Back in the early 1960s, ministers and the churches they served, felt underrepresented in our Unity movement. They felt they didn't have a voice at the table that was making all the decisions, and other departments like Unity Publishing, Silent Unity, and the vast real estate holdings they were getting all the funding, energy, and attention in the movement. And this came to an impasse, and the ministers decided to splinter off and to create their own organization that would look after their needs and look after the needs of the churches and the congregants like yourselves. This eventually became known as Unity Worldwide Ministries, and this is the board that I currently serve on. This board represents you, it represents this church, and it represents all the leadership in the Unity movement. But in 2015, both CEOs from both organizations came together and announced that it was time to reunite the movement. It was time to heal this wound of separation that came at that time. And there was much rejoicing. They announced it in front of the entire convention body, and 400 ministers and LUTs and lay leaders stood up and applauded, and were very excited about that. But come to find out, a few years later, merging two corporations is easier said than done. Two fully established corporations with separate staff, each with their own governing board, each with their own investors, each with their own membership and financial obligations, their own real estate holdings. We're talking 50-plus real estate holdings, and on and on and on. Things that big don't just easily get sandwiched back together. Everyone sort of had this idea that in a few months we'd be one Unity and we'd be moving on. Well, there's teams of lawyers involved, there's teams of advisors involved, there's people that are in the nonprofit world trying to figure out how you get this whole thing to work out. So that was our focus this week. That's what we were working on, working out the details of how we reunite these two organizations. And I tell you all of this just to give you some backstory to what came up for me during the process. Everyone in both organizations, including both boards and staff and the membership, love this Unity movement like a mother loves her child. None of us wanted to inadvertently hurt this child in any way, shape, or form. Everyone is very concerned about that. We all want to do everything we can to nurture and support the growth and the maturity of this movement as it goes into the future. But we have some very tough decisions to make. As you can imagine, there is duplication in staff, people that serve the same positions, and you don't want to just let them go as you bring them together. There's duplication in leadership. We have 2 CEOs, we have 2 financial organizers, we have 2 of everything at this point. So all these decisions have to be worked out, and they're tough decisions. And these are decisions that will affect the movement for decades to come. This is no small feat. And as much as we all love this movement, there is a chance we could be like the mother who loves her child to a fault. The mother that loves her child so much that she tries to keep it from ever experiencing hardship or learning difficult lessons? Do you think it is important for a child to learn its lessons? You are just as unsure as last service, which is fascinating to me. Everyone's like, they could learn lessons or not, who cares? We'll just kick them out the door at 5 and see what happens. Well, that is where we are. And when you think about love in this sense, there really are several types of love at stake in this situation and any situation that involves a mother figure. And love is actually one of the 12 powers recognized by our Unity co-founder, Charles Fillmore, one of the 12 powers that we are expressing through our bodies and through our existence each and every day. Each of these powers has a higher divine aspect to them or divine expression of them, and each of them has a lower human limited expression of them as well. And that is the same for love. So when it comes to love, we have love, very straightforward. Love with a lowercase l. It is not perfect, and it is subject to human imperfection. This kind of love says, I love you, I want to protect you and support you and encourage you and help you and guide you and empower you, but only as I currently see you, perceive you, and as I currently think is best for you and me. That is the kind of limited, sort of small love that exists at the duality of the two aspects of love. It hears a complaining child, and its reaction is to hand it candy because it doesn't see the whole picture. It only sees right now. It doesn't look at what is happening in the grand scale. And in that moment, it says, right now, it's best for both of us if you're quiet. So I will give you candy. Does that make sense? Thanks, Jack. The second time you've heard that and you still didn't get it. It's both services. We'll have a one-on-one after the service and we'll really get to this one. 3 services. You'll be the only one at the 3rd service. All right, little love can actually make you blind at times, and I'm sure some of us have actually experienced this. Little love can make you do things that seem best in the short term, but dangerous in the long term. But there is a higher form of love. Now, when we have love, when we capitalize it, it indicates the divine definition of that word. This is what we do in Unity. And divine love, or what we might call agape love, which was mentioned earlier, is unconditional, it is independent of time and space, and it is independent of my own personal beliefs and perceptions. It is unaffected by my personal beliefs and perceptions. This love says, I love you, I want to protect you, to support you, encourage you, help you, guide you, and empower you to become your highest self. No matter who I think you currently are right now, no matter what I perceive is actually happening in your experience right now, divine love sees your true essence and your unchanging spirit and knows that there is something much greater about you beyond just how you're showing up in this moment. Does that make sense? So this big love, this divine love, is looking at the wholeality of all existence versus what is happening in this moment in your life or my life. Which brings me to a third and less celebrated aspect of love: tough love. Has anyone ever experienced tough love? I'll admit I have. If you had a great mother, you probably did experience some tough love. And tough love is really, as I see it, part of the path to divine love. Tough love looks at difficult situations, and it says, in this moment, the best way for me to show you my true and unwavering, everlasting love is for me to let you learn this lesson. That is what tough love really is. It's so expanded in awareness that it can step back and say, this is a time for me to let you learn this lesson. This is not a time for me to step in and try to save you from it. And tough love, I've heard a lot of times, gets a really bad rap. People say tough love is when someone doesn't truly understand love, or they're struggling at their essence of love, or they've missed the point to love. And that's not how I see it. I see tough love as one of the highest forms of human love, and it is the pathway to divine love. Now, please hear me when I say there is absolutely a time and place when love requires us to step in and help out. It requires us to step in and to stop unnecessary suffering. It is a mandatory part of love when we see unnecessary suffering that we step in and do something about it. But there's also a time when love unites with higher awareness, when it unites with higher wisdom, and we recognize that this is actually an opportunity for growth, and I need to step out. So in that respect, tough love is love infused with the power of wisdom. And if you really think about it, tough love is love infused with the power of wisdom and the power of will. And both of those powers are two more of Unity's 12 powers. And tough love involves both of these powers because it takes wisdom to know when to step back, when to step out, when to allow. And it's going to require willpower to stay out when you see someone going through hardship. Tough love requires the wisdom insight to know when to stay out, and you're going to have the willpower to stay out when things get difficult. And this isn't necessarily an easy process, and you'll see all too often we actually love from a selfish form of love, a small kind of love when we're in these situations. And this might be a little bit difficult for me to explain, but I'm going to give it my best shot here. We love others, and we don't want to see them struggle. That is sort of inherent in our experience, that when we love others, and ultimately we do love all others, we don't want to see them struggle. That is a part of the experience. That is universal. But on the other hand, we know deep down that struggle is, at times, a necessary part of growing through life. We recognize that to be true. We've experienced ourselves. We've seen ourselves come out of it more expanded and more mature from it. So if we know that another's struggle might be beneficial and necessary, what we really don't want is the struggle that we feel when we see others struggling. And so many times, selfishly, we step in to stop their healthy and natural struggle, really just to alleviate our own struggle that we feel by watching them go through the process. And in that sense, it's selfish. But it's still coming from a place of love. So this brings me back to uniting the Unity movement. Whatever solution both organizations come to will no doubt be done out of love. I can testify to that today. But as I see it, the decision is like any difficult decision that we face in life. This is no different than any difficult decision that you or anyone else is facing in life. We have to recognize that there could be some hardship that comes with the process, and that is just a natural part of the process and a natural part of making difficult decisions. Some unpleasant aspects of it will be there for ourselves and for others. Like any successful marriage, there's gonna have to be some compromise. There's gonna have to be me not getting necessarily what I want or what I personally think is best. There's gonna have to be concessions. And many times when we go through this process, that is what is required of us. That is what the universe is asking of us, to learn to let go of our own personal perception that we think is right. And we struggle with that, and there's suffering with that, and there is often pain that comes with that. But that is the part of life. And in order to make the right choice in these times, we need to reach for that divine love. We need to elevate that love out of the small love into that bigger divine love, which will likely require some tough love in the process all along the way. It's just not healthy to try to give everyone what they want, primarily because most people don't know what they want, and they especially don't know what they need. Instead, focusing on what is really needed and best for the whole, that should always be the goal. And that rhymed because I thought that was fun. Each and every one of us today is expressing a mother's love in one way or another. In the acts you do throughout the day, sharing that universal love that's coming through, you are expressing this mother's love. And there are lessons that we all need to learn from in life. And it's going to require some wisdom and intuition to decipher when is it time to step in, when is it time to step out. Allowing ourselves and others to learn from these lessons can be one of the most difficult aspects of love. If you guys could see my perspective, I just saw 200 heads go, and it was like, we don't care what you're saying, this is more important. 4 kids just came in, calm down, it's part of life. Can you imagine if I had a TV on behind me? I would just get nothing done. I'll try that one. So I'm going to do a talk about distraction and just have a TV on in the background and see what we learn from that. What was that? Oh, I'm almost done. It's almost done. Anyway, we really have to allow ourselves and we really have to allow others to learn these lessons and really start to tap into what aspect of love are we expressing at this time? Are we coming from that divine awareness of love, or is it that selfish love that is still genuine in its source but might be disingenuine in its execution because it's been distracted? And it could quite possibly be, as I understand it, that the very thing that is needed to reveal the true divine essence of love in each and every one of us is a little bit more tough love. And that is the truth as I experience it.